Good evening, BookTube. This is Johnny down the lower level. I thought I would do a video. I have been saying, I don't know how many times, that I was going to show you some used books that I've gotten at thrift stores the last couple of weeks. Today is May the 13th. 2024 is 4:37 in the afternoon. It is a Monday. So I thought about doing Monday reads, but as you can see from watching my videos, I am a slow reader. I take my time. I don't rush through books because I read a lot of books at one time over a period of time. I showed you how I read. Someone left me a comment the other day, how many hours of a day did I read? And I answered maybe 3 or 4 hours, because when I'm reading, I'm always writing in my paper diary, and then I'll get up and, I'll do something. So I don't just sit down and read hour after hour, but I read at least three to 4 hours a day, because I read all day long. But anyway, I'm not going to ramble. I'm not going to go into details about these books because I just bought them. They've been stacked down here in the lower level, and I can put them away. And so I'm just going to show the books. And like I said, these are things I primarily collect. That I have books by these writers or by the subject matter. And one of the books I picked up, I think it was last week, I can't remember, was a Patricia Highsmith thriller. I don't know, I hate that word, thriller. I don't know. She wrote Strangers on a Train. How do they catalog this book? Let me see here. It says suspense, I don't know, but People Who Knock on the Door by Patricia Highsmith. I collect her. I didn't have this one in my collection. I started reading it, but then I realized I've been reading too many books, so it's on my to be read pile. And then today I picked up this is a series I never heard of. This is volume 1 of a series called Fever and Spear by Javier Marquez. I think he's born in Madrid, Spain. This was translated out of the Spanish by Margaret, Jull, Costa. And this one is called Your Face Tomorrow, volume 1 of a series called Fever and Spear. And I don't know what the other ones are. It says here, forthcoming, Your Face Tomorrow, volume 2, Dance and Dream, Your Face Tomorrow, volume 3. I have other novels by him, but I never seen this series. So I got it today. This is On the Edge of the Cliff, short stories by V.S. Pritchett. I collect him. And so I found this today. I collect the European editions. This is Bitter Almonds by Laurence. Cosse. This is translated out of French by Alison Anderson. These are Europeas. I have another novel by this individual, in the novel bookstore, and I looked for it, and it's one that I bought from Amazon. So I know I didn't get rid of it, and I can't find it, but I have another one by her. This is Grammars of Creation. These are I think it's like a series of essays by George Steiner. It says here, Grammars of Creation, originating in the Clifford Lectures from 1990 by George Steiner. This is, as you know, I just read a little, someone wrote a memoir about their friendship with George Steiner I just read. I have a novel by this individual. These are, I think, short stories called The Next New World by Bob. I can't pronounce that name. But when I went to library thing, it said I had a novel by him, and I can't find it. This came out in 1989. When I saw it at a thrift store, it was recommended by Robert Stone, one of my favorite writers, John Irving, and Barry Hannah, all that I respect. So I picked it up. The Next New World. I think they're short stories. Stories by the winner of the American Book Award. I have this already in paperback, but this is The Old Forest and Other Stories by Peter Taylor. He's one of my favorite Southern writers. And I have a paperback of this, and I found a hardback. This is The Longest Minute, The Great San Francisco Earthquake and the Fire of 1906 by Matthew J. Davenport. I collect books on San Francisco. As you know, I'm from the Bay Area. I was born in Oakland. I lived in San Francisco Bay Area, San Pablo, Richmond area. I was born in Oakland. Haven't been back there in almost 45 years. This is the great short works of Joseph Conrad, who I collect. I really like these little editions, and I didn't have this edition of his works. I collect them. This is from the Harper Perennial Classic, the great short works of Joseph Conrad. And then I found this book, Civilian Resistance as a National Defense, Nonviolent Action Against Aggression, edited by Adam Roberts. I collect the writings of Deborah Levy. These are her stories, Ophelia and the Great Idea. I have several of her books. This is one of her earlier works, which came out in 1989. I have this in paperback, and I found a hardback. If the River Was Whiskey, Stories by D.C. Boyle. I have this in a paperback, and this is a pristine condition hardback. He's one of my favorite writers, D.C. Boyle. This came out in, let me see, Viking, first published 1989. Found this at a Goodwill, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, complete edition, illustrated by Manly P. Hall. This was first published in, I think it says here, it says The Secret Teachings of All Ages, an encyclopedic outline of Messianic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolic philosophy. being an interpretation of the secret teachings concealed within the rituals, allegories, and mysteries of all ages. Manly P. Hall, 1928. I collect books like this just as I'm curious. I have this in paperback, and I found a hardback. Paul Johnson, History of the American People. I had a paperback, and this is a hardback edition in perfect condition, so I bought that. This is Sensational, The Hidden History of America's Girl Stunt Reporters by Kim Todd. I have this already in a different edition, Grace Notes by Bernard McLevery. This is a novel. I had this in a different edition. He lives in Glasgow. I collect the New York Review books. This is one called An African in Greenland by, I can't pronounce the name, but it's one I didn't have. I have novels by this guy named Adam Haslett. Imagine Me Gone, a novel by Adam Haslett. I have other books by him, novels. And I enjoyed his short stories I read a couple years ago. This is the first novel, American novel by an African American, Charles Chestnut, the first major American Negro fiction writer. You don't use that anymore, but anyway, it's called The Marrow of Tradition. This was first published in, what does it say? Well, he lived from 1858 and he died in 1932. An important landmark in the history of Negro fiction in America. Chestnut was one of the first American authors to directly challenge some of the racial stereotypes to which an earlier generation of American readers had become accustomed. So I picked that up. I also collect, I never heard of this writer, but he's he's from the Caribbean. It's called Cybo the Magnificent by Patrick. Can't pronounce the name. But from what I gathered, he lives in the Caribbean. This is a novel by Thomas Mann I never heard of. Lodi and Welmar, The Below Returns by Thomas Mann. I never heard of this before. Found it at some thrift store. Translated from the German by H.T. Lowell Porter. University of California Press. Published in 1968. Here's another Adam Haslett, Union Atlantic, a novel. So I just showed you a book by him. See, I have two of them. Adam Haslett. This is Old William by Elizabeth Strout, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I like her novels. I didn't have this one in my collection. Old William by Elizabeth Strout. I have this in paperback. It's one of my favorite novels by Richard Rusco, Empire Falls. Yeah, I was really pleased to find this. It's a decal edge. Perfect. It came out in 2001. And it is, I don't think it's a first edition. But I collect Richard Rusco, and I didn't have this one in a hardback. I have it in a paperback, Empire Falls. This is a series on the civil rights movement, and I had one of the volumes. This is the one I had, Parting the Waters, America in the King years, 1954 to 63. And then I found this one a couple of weeks ago at a thrift store, at Canaan's Edge, America in the King Age. This is Martin Luther King Jr., 1965 to 68. This is a 3-volume series, and I don't have, I think, the middle one. I think this is I might miss the third one, but anyway, I'm looking for the 3 volumes in this series on the civil rights. And then I found this one. This is the last thing I found at a thrift store. I like reading about Jewish history. And this is Shores of Refuge, 100 Years of Jewish Immigration by Ronald Sanders. And yeah, it's very interesting reading how Jews migrated here to America, turn of the century, 100 years of Jewish immigration. So these are the books I found. D.C. Boyle, Deborah Levy, Joseph Conrad, Peter Taylor, George Steiner. I collect the Europia editions. I collect the writings of V.S. Pritchett. These are his short stories. I have novels by this Spanish writer from Spain, Javier Marez. This is a series he did, Fever and Spear. I never heard of it, but I'll keep looking for it. If I enjoy reading this one, I'll get the other ones used. I really like the suspense, kind of offbeat novels of Patricia Highsmith. I just bought her diaries that were published last year. I got them. And I have a couple of biographies on Patricia Highsmith. And this is the first novel by an African American, by Charles Chestnut, The Marrow of Tradition. And I collect the American Review books. This is one I didn't have, an African in Greenland. I collect the writings of Bernard McLavery, which I have over there on the bottom shelf. I like reading about reporters. And this looked interesting. Girl stunt reporters, sensational. Paul Johnson's History of the United States. I have his History of Christianity. He wrote all kinds of books. The Birth of the Modern, which is my favorite. Intellectuals, which I have. History of the English People. History of the Jews. Modern Times. History of Art. This is his History of the American People. And I like esoteric things. I have a whole collection of this kind of the secret teachings of all ages. If you go to Amazon, this Manly P. Hall has all kinds of books. It was a turn of the century kind of authority on esoteric religions. So I picked it up just from my collection. Richard Rusko is one of my favorite writers. Empire Falls. Luther's Sprout I collect. Adam Haslett. Thomas Mann. And this Caribbean writer I never heard of. So that's my thrift store haul for the last couple of weeks. Going on 20 minutes. Yeah, this is a Monday. Still reading Mrs. McIntosh, My Darling. I read over 600 pages. Still reading Systematic Theology, Reformed Systematic Theology by Volume 4, The Church and the Last Things by Beakey and Smalley. My wife and I are reading through the New Testament in the morning. We're going through the book of the Acts of the Apostles. Writing in my diary. Just trying to get through life. I got books coming in the mail this week. A commentary on the Reformation heritage on Isaiah. The prophecy of Isaiah in the Old Testament. So that's it. So thank you for the new subscribers. Hope you're all doing well. Tomorrow I see my psychologist at 1 o'clock. We just sit around and talk. He always asks me a lot of questions about the Bible and theology, and then that's it. The weather here today was 79 degrees. Everything's blooming. That's it. So I hope you're having a good week, that you will have a good reading week. Hope you had a good reading weekend. Thank you for the comments. Do pray you're all doing well. And yeah, I don't know what the next video will be. Whatever the Lord leads. So until next time, bye.